Hello and welcome to another episode of Quarantine with Fulbrighters. And once again, we have somebody who's doing some brilliant work in the field, and especially with COVID, the work that she's doing deserves even more recognition. So let me first introduce Dr. Bushra Rahim to you. How are you doing, Dr. Bushra?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you're doing a lot in the field that I'm personally very, very interested in and have some work experience in, which is education. Uh,
That's good.
and you also studied from SUNY Fulbright. Is that right? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, I did. Yeah. I graduated from SUNY Albany. Yeah.
so? I'm from Cooney, Brooklyn. So some
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
we're sisters, but you have a PhD in education, and I only have a master's in theater. So let's just jump straight into it. What is
Uh-huh.
this brilliant program that you've been doing during COVID, and what is Kitab Dost?
Okay. So Kitab Dost is actually, which is called Friends of Book,
Hmm.
is a storybook reading program. It was initiated in 2019 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Um, the aim was to improve reading skills, learning outcomes, and inculcate reading habits among the children of government primary schools. So the reading classes, they are conducted once a week for 1 hour by volunteers, males for boys schools and females for girls schools. Various platforms were used to call for volunteers such as reading clubs, associations, universities, and social media. Friends and family members, they donated the books. The pilot phase of Kitab Dost, it was initiated in 2019 in 22 primary schools in Peshawar. The program targeted 1,000 plus students in the selected schools in Peshawar. Um, and the pilot phase resulted in, just like I stated earlier, improved reading habits, improved reading and writing skills, confidence building, increased demand for books by students, and it improved their overall behavior and participation in positive activities, as we observed from the feedback that we received from the students and teachers.
So
So this is.
how, in terms of literacy, we keep hearing that literacy is a huge issue. How big a problem is, or how far behind are we in terms of global literacy numbers? Do you feel Pakistan is really lacking as far as literacy is concerned?
Yeah, the average literacy rate in Pakistan is 60%, 59 and 60%. For women, unfortunately, the literacy rate is much lower than that, which is 30%, 30, 35, 40%. And in some of the districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the literacy rate is as low as 1% and
Wow.
3% in the remote districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Literacy is very, very low in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and that's why we thought about introducing this Kitab Dost program.
So even the rate is low to begin with, but even how we categorize literacy, do you feel the criteria to categorize somebody as being literate in Pakistan, do you feel it's adequate?
No, no, I don't think so, because literacy is defined as someone who can read and write his or her name, and can do the signature. And recently, another option has been added, which is like computer literate, or people who can read newspapers, things like that. But I think that the literacy definition is not at par with what the international world is defining it. So
what
no.
what is the international requirement? How do other countries define literacy?
At least you should be proficient in the in reading and in reading especially, and Western countries, as you know, the literacy rate is much higher. It is 90% and
Mm.
95% in those countries, and even the school systems are better than our school systems. So even if we graduate from a school, Our education is not at par with I think what the graduates are from an American university or an Australian university, even if they have studied till grade 10.
Mm.
Yeah.
So do you feel, in terms of early childhood intervention, how important is inculcating that habit or that culture of learning and reading at a very early age?
It is very, very important to introduce reading from early childhood because reading introduces children to new words and ideas, helps children with their confidence levels. They are able to cope with their feelings. Even research has been conducted which indicate that reading improves thinking and analytical skills, promotes lifelong learning, improves economy, and creates jobs. Um, According to the UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report, if all students in low income countries had basic reading skills, 171 million people in these low income countries
Wow.
could be lifted out of poverty. In other words, such basic action as reading can result in a 12% cut in global poverty. So you can realize how important it is to start these reading programs early on.
So we jumped into the Kitab Dost because I was very, very interested in finding more about it. But maybe we can combine the two right now. So these are the problems that you've uh, rightfully identified, and we've already talked about Kitab Dost. How does that fit into addressing these problems? How does that project help these problems?
So just like I mentioned that what we do is that our volunteers, they visit the schools once a week, and they stay in the school for 1 hour. They read storybooks, and in addition to reading storybooks, they teach them other skills such as social skills, and they teach them like social values and civic sense and all these things that are
Mm.
missing in us right now. So that's what they do when they visit the schools every week.
Do you feel, so the fact that they read them storybooks, is that just incidental, or do you feel that fiction helps maybe spark a curiosity about reading, or do you feel telling them stories helps form their relationship with reading as well?
Yes, why not? Because just because these sessions take place every Saturday.
Hmm.
So this Saturday, we were taking an online session, and so the book was a bilingual book. It was in Urdu and English. And one of my Pakistani American friend, she was reading the story online. So children were taking so much interest in that storybook that they were asking the meaning of each and every word.
Hmm.
And they were saying that okay, so if it's elephant, for example, so what how can you translate elephant in Urdu or Pashto? So they were learning three languages in that one session, and they were identifying that which character is in that storybook and things like that. And then they were thinking about how they can relate that story to themselves and their real lives as well. So like all these things, they ignite your imagination as well, and improves reading. And they are now asking for books, like when the sessions ended, so they said that can we get storybooks, and we want to go back to our homes and we want to read these stories. So yes, they are taking keen interest in that as well.
I think there are a couple of avenues that we can go down, and if we can talk about both those things at the same time. A lot of our listeners are people who probably work in the education field, who are probably curious about the work that you do. But there are a lot of other people who work in different fields, and as somebody who has a PhD and has worked with the government, I want to talk about the particular pilot project for Kitab Dost, but
Mhm.
also in terms of what you've learned through your PhD and through your education and leadership program. How do pilot projects work? What's the importance? How do you take the learnings from the pilot project and, put those into the project itself?
Okay, so basically, I'll start from like how and where we do these
Yeah.
sessions. So, for example, um, why we chose or why we chose government schools.
Yes.
I think didn't mention in the start that one of the issues that the literacy rate is so low is because the learning outcomes in government schools are and especially in low cost private schools is very low. So, for example, according to a household survey in rural Punjab, and 93% class 3 students, they cannot read grade 2 level sentences, right? So what we did was that we approached elementary and secondary education
Mhm.
department in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the support that we got from the government was tremendous. And like right from day one, when we contacted elementary and secondary education department to select primary schools for Kitab Dost, till this day, they have owned this initiative as one of their own. Um, so we piloted it for 3 months, and the results were phenomenal. The students, like they themselves shown interest in purchasing books. It improved their confidence level and all this. And after these 3 months, we requested the then Minister for Education, Mr. Ziaullah Khan Bangesh. And although this was a small indigenous program, like you said, that the pilot programs, they end up and then there are not many chances to roll it out. But when we tested this pilot program, we invited the then Minister for Education, Mr. Ziaullah Khan Bangesh, and although it was a small indigenous program, he accepted our invitation to conclude the pilot phase and give away certificates to the volunteers. Um, and he directed then to roll the initiative to other schools in District Peshawar, as well as other districts of the province. And he highly appreciated Kitab Dost and the selfless resolve of volunteers for the betterment of our children. So, we got a lot of confidence when the minister came and he directed to roll this program. So now in the second phase, we have rolled this program to 40 schools in Peshawar, and you would be pleased to know that this program has also been launched in on pilot basis in Rawalpindi Islamabad chapter of this association that I'm heading as president, which is Association of Business Professional and Agricultural Women. So there is another branch in Rawalpindi and Islamabad of this association, and they have also they are also testing this program in Islamabad. In addition to that, we have established libraries in the second phase. Now we are establishing libraries, and you may know that there are no libraries in schools at all. So we are establishing libraries in government schools. In the second phase, we were able to partner with Millersville University. So they have approached us, and they'll be recording videos of story reading. So this is a partnership that they'll be doing with us. And in addition to that, just like I mentioned earlier, that online reading sessions by expatriate Pakistanis and our foreign friends, they are contributing as well.
Beautiful.
Um, uh, in few days, we will be launching mobile rickshaw library in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa,
Nice.
and this support is being provided by Alif Laila Book Bus Society, who has donated storybooks to us in the second phase. And due to those donations, we are establishing libraries in the government schools. So yeah, we learned from pilot phase, and we are extending it to more schools and more districts
What
and more regions.
Was there anything specific that came out of the pilot phase that maybe you also did not anticipate when you were planning it?
Yeah, there were three major constraints or challenges that we faced. Um, uh, Shortage of storybooks, and shortage of volunteers, and limited or lack of media exposure. But in the this second phase, now we are able to reach out to many organizations. So you would have heard about Gogi Studios. So Miss Nigar Nazar, she's also a Fulbrighter. So so we are partnering with Gogi
Mm.
Studios, and they have donated us books, and some of the books were purchased by us. We are also partnering with the Alif Laila Book Bus Society, and just like I mentioned earlier, that they have donated 40 boxes of books to us. And now we are going to establish libraries in these schools. So that's how we, in the second phase, we are overcoming this issue of shortage of storybooks. Um, Regarding shortage of volunteers, we are now visiting leading private schools, private and autonomous higher education institutes. We recently met Vice Chancellor of Peshawar University, and so we are calling for volunteers there. In addition to that, we reached out to Pakistan US Alumni Network on social media, Fulbright Alumni Network in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, because I'm the president of a Fulbright Alumni Association. So I reached out to them as well, and I requested them for volunteers. Media exposure was limited in the pilot phase, but now various media channels are contacting us, and they are spreading the word about Kitab Dost. So that's how we are overcoming these challenges.
The only downside of doing these podcasts is it makes me feel so inadequate. I tell jokes for a living, then I see all the brilliant work that people are doing. And this is sort of the beauty of the Fulbright network. There's so much synergy. So all the great work that
Yeah.
everybody is doing, there's so much potential for collaboration. So people who are even listening, who are interested in volunteering their time or stories or even their original work, Dr. Bushra Rahim is here. Please, does Kitab Dost have a social media presence where they can get in touch?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's on Facebook. So we have two pages. So I'll share the links with you, and they can
Yes.
sign up for Kitab Dost.
Please, how is it like operating during COVID? I assume with things like stories and reading, once you're in a classroom and you're together and you're reading these stories together, the learning might be a bit more fun than doing it over Zoom.
Yeah, you are right. But like unfortunately, we couldn't do it much online during COVID, because schools don't have these gadgets. Public schools don't have these gadgets, so we have to take these computers and projectors and internet device as well to the
Mhm.
schools. Um, uh, but we devised other novel ideas about how to work during COVID. For example, volunteers, they came up with the ideas like reading stories to children in their neighborhood,
Hmm.
reading stories in orphanage house because they weren't closed during COVID, and thalassemia centers, they were open, or madrasas. We went to madrasas or low-cost private schools because they were taking their sessions. We were able to visit these places, and some of the sessions that we were able to do online, we did it online as well.
How has the expansion been? So that government partnership, uh, is it different taking it from a pilot project, which is much smaller, so then expanding it to a lot of schools, or is it a project that something you can easily replicate onto other schools or do it at a much larger scale?
Yeah, it's like expansion is not difficult as long as we have committed volunteers and we have storybooks. So for the volunteers, what we do is that we train them in story reading techniques. So you would be glad to know that the volunteers that we have they range from age 8 till 70.
Nice.
So yeah, so and even in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, like the volunteers that we do have writers with us. So like writers, they know how to write a story, how to read a story. So in those orientation sessions, they teach them how to read and write stories as well. So these orientation sessions are very productive for volunteers. So volunteers, they get trained in story reading sessions, and then they go to schools, and then they narrate their stories. We have WhatsApp groups, and in those WhatsApp groups, they share their accounts every Saturday.
Mm.
So it is so exciting and interesting experience. They talk about not only reading sessions, but even if they face any issue in the classroom. For example, if the classroom, they don't have whiteboards, or if they don't have furniture, things like that, or if the children are without shoes or warm clothes. So would
Yeah.
you believe that we have now started raising donations for them? And we have raised donations, and we have purchased whiteboards for some of the schools. And now we are also thinking to like provide stationery and other supplies that the schools need. So we are also working on those areas as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think this is always so enlightening talking to Fulbrighters, that sometimes these simple local solutions that work are impactful, but you have to go around the world to know what works. And uh, that's maybe the insight that Fulbrighters probably bring to the table, to find those local solutions that work, even if once they're done they sound intuitive and they sound simple. How much of what you're doing are things that you learned in the US, or how was studying in the US like for you?
um I think what I am today and what I am doing today is because of my experience abroad, my education abroad. My Fulbright experience, it was phenomenal. The university opened new avenues for me, and as a Fulbright scholar, I co-founded a non-profit NGO, which is a development agent for change, and we are working to empower women, children, and youth through capacity building and politics, education, and livelihood. In addition to that, I'm writing numerous journal articles, and one of which was written with my professor, Dr. Erin Benevo, who was my advisor at U Albany. And that article focused on evaluating learning assessments in Pakistan. Um, After I returned from US, I was elected as a vice president of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Fulbright Alumni Association. I served for 3 years, and we arranged various activities for the Fulbrighters. For example, visit to universities to educate
Mm.
women about foreign scholarship programs, especially Fulbright, arrange networking events, documentaries, workshops, and job fairs. After 3 years, I was elected as president of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Fulbright Alumni Association. Um, so. So my experience, it was top notch. The learning environment in the university was excellent. As you know, the diverse student body,
Yes.
world-renowned faculty, and research centers and programs they provide transformative learning experiences to prepare students for tomorrow's world. So, which make the learning experience exemplary. So, yeah, overall the experience was commendable. It was exemplary.
I think this is why we keep insisting on calling it the Fulbright experience, because it's the complete experience. It's not just university. and the education
True.
that you receive. It's also the cultural exposure. Are there things that you learned being in the US in terms of cultural exposure that you were able to bring back?
Um, yeah, I think there are two cultural factors that now I would like to advance in my work, and I am advancing in my work in Pakistan. One of which is melting pot atmosphere, and another one is a right to free speech. As you know, people from different cultures, nationalities, races, religions, ethnicities, they live together in the US in peace and harmony. Everyone is treated equally and they are judged on merit, and that is truly phenomenal for me. And this is what is now being reflected in my work here in Pakistan. Another aspect that I really appreciate is the First Amendment right to free speech, which promotes acceptance and respect for diverse viewpoints while enhancing opportunities to engage in academic pursuits. So these are some of the factors that now I'm advancing in my work in Pakistan, and I enjoyed it a lot when I was in the United States.
If I mean, I'm not sure how many times you took that bus down from Albany to New York City, but being in New York, that notion of the melting pot, that notion of value and diversity, people from all over the world are in this place. Um,
Yeah,
One of my biggest advantages was obviously food. You got the best food from all over the world in New York City. But even just talking
true.
to people from all around the world, learning from them, learning from their experiences, and bringing it all back, it's just invaluable. So for people who are listening, who might be working in education or might want to help out, are there any words of advice that you can give to them if they want to replicate these programs or want to promote child learning and reading?
Yes, my ultimate aim is that we shall expand Kitab Dost to every district and every province and every region of Pakistan. And I would like Fulbright alumni and other foreign graduates to volunteer for this program, and they can just like mentioned that one of the branches of Association of Business Professional and Agricultural Women, they are now replicating it in Islamabad, Rawalpindi.
Wow.
So the same can be done in other regions and other provinces and districts as well. All we need is just volunteers. And regarding storybooks that we were short of, I hope and I believe that everyone have storybooks in their homes, and they can donate it. And there are many wonderful organizations like Gogi Studio and Alif Laila Book Bus Society and many other wonderful organizations. They are ready to support you. Like I mentioned that soon we will be launching mobile library rickshaw in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and we are trying to go to those communities that are extremely rural, where poverty is high, and where children they are out of school. Um, so yes, we would like volunteers to join us and help us promote our cause.
I wish everybody who's listening will help Dr. Bushra promote this cause, because it's such a worthy cause. The idea that we teach our children to learn, we teach our children to read, just giving all of them the skills, the opportunities for one day for them to go around the world, for them to get these learning experiences, for them to get this cultural exposure. All of this begins by learning how to read. All of this begins by seeing what's out there. Once you can read about it, then maybe one day you can experience it as well. And for everything that you've experienced, Dr. Bushra, and everything that you do, more power to you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. And for everybody who's listening, please look up Kitab Dost, like it, and stay tuned with us. And we'll be back again next week with another guest on quarantine with Fulbrighters. Thank you everybody for listening. Take care. Bye bye.